Welcome to those of you who've made it through the rain of Brussels, through the joy of registering and security downstairs and up into the room. Welcome also to those of you who are joining online, who are interested in this topic. So this year's Green Week is focusing on the issue of water resilience. And in this session, we're going to be talking about innovative and resilient water basin management for cities and regions. And let me just put a little bit of context on the issue before we go any further. So we know that last year, because we all lived through it, Europe was about 7% wetter on average than the average in previous years. And that's despite the fact it was one of the hottest years on record. So what does this mean? It meant that a third of rivers in Europe breached what we call a high flood threshold last year. Rivers flow through cities, so key issues. We know also that climate change will bring both wetter winters in Northern Europe and drier summers in Southern Europe. Both of them will bring problems that will be addressed. So this might mean managing drought and water shortages in one part of Europe with the opposing problem of catastrophic rains leading to floods in other parts of Europe. We also know that cities will face huge challenges with infrastructure to address this. And the majority of Europeans already live in cities, so this is an area that needs to be addressed. And as a result of climate change and demographic change, because Europe is one of the fastest aging continents in the world, people are leaving rural areas and moving to the cities. So that concentration of the population with their water demands and their water needs is going to increase for cities and regional authorities to manage. So some of the things that we need to think about is that, we have to manage when you get heavy rain, you get the sewage system gets overloaded and you get overflow into our waterways during heavy or extreme weather, which we know is going to be more frequent. Cities and regions are already fully aware of this. They work with their utility companies to try and resolve this. And that's on top of the challenges that we also are trying to address to clean our waterways of chemicals, of the runoff from agriculture, which uses about 70% of the water we extract. So there you can see some tensions that might exist about demands on water. So we need to be thinking about what could we do creatively at local or regional level in terms of infrastructure, whether this is thinking about the roofs of cities, this is thinking about tarmac and roads and concrete and increasing the permeability of the land, but it's also thinking about water management, water use, reducing leaks. So all of these kinds of topics are going to be addressed today, and I have a fantastic panel who will help us explore. You will be able to interact with us and we'll be opening the floor. We've left quite a lot of time towards the end of today's session for a Q&A and a debate with our experts, and we really want to hear from you. If you're watching online, you can use Slido, and we've got the QR code here that will allow you to interact and send your questions. For those of you who are on social media, we encourage you to use the hashtag for Green Week, which is EU Green Week, and also the hashtag WaterWiseEU. This event is brought to you by the UDiTE network, and you can see with its partner VEOLIA, you can see on the screen the two social media handles that if you want to interact or write your comments and feedback, that's how you would do it. My name is Tamsin Rose, and as you probably guessed by now, I'm the moderator for our session today. It's my job to get the best out of our speakers and give you the best opportunity to learn and share your experience. So that's the background. What I'd like to do is I'm now going to introduce our first intervention, and we have a video address. That reminds me, can I invite you to put your mobiles on silent? Just so that for those of you in the room, those watching online, you're welcome to be disturbed by your own mobile phones. Here we prefer not to. I'm now going to invite the president of UDiTE, Stéphane Pintre, to give us a brief introduction. He sent us a video, so let's watch his message.
Mesdames, Messieurs, chers collègues, chers amis, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à l'occasion de notre atelier conjoint UDiTE-VEOLIA dans le cadre de la Green Week 2024 et je vous remercie pour votre présence. Je tiens à remercier le DG Environnement de la Commission européenne et le Comité des régions de nous avoir retenus pour notre événement partenaire gestion innovante et résiliente des bassins hydrographiques pour les villes et les régions dans le programme de la Green Week 2024. Je suis désolé de ne pas pouvoir être parmi vous aujourd'hui et je m'en excuse. Je suis néanmoins représenté par mon prédécesseur à la présidence de l'UDiTE, membre du comité exécutif de l'UDiTE, mon ami Paul Gatt de Malte, que je remercie chaleureusement. UDiTE, vous le savez sans doute, est la principale association européenne des directeurs généraux des services des collectivités territoriales en Europe. UDiTE regroupe les associations européennes des directeurs généraux des collectivités locales de Belgique, de France, d'Espagne, d'Irlande, d'Italie, de Malte, du Portugal, de Roumanie. L'objectif de notre association est de promouvoir les relations entre les associations professionnelles de directeurs généraux qui gèrent les collectivités locales à un moment de notre histoire où nous sommes confrontés à une importante charge de travail et à des missions de plus en plus complexes et diversifiées. Il est donc essentiel, sinon vital pour nous, de continuer à développer des échanges d'informations, à partager nos expériences professionnelles sur nos modes de gestion et notamment la problématique des marchés publics dans le cadre de la transition écologique. UDiTE s'engage donc à soutenir constamment le rôle professionnel et les fonctions des directeurs généraux de nos collectivités locales et à encourager nos collègues à travers l'Europe à adopter les meilleures pratiques au bénéfice de nos concitoyens pour faciliter la transition écologique. Le thème de la Green Week 2024, vers une Europe résiliente face à l'eau, est un thème majeur pour nos collectivités. Et nous adhérons à la campagne lancée avant-hier par la Commission Waterwise Europe, qui nous rappelle l'importance d'innover en permanence pour trouver de nouvelles méthodes de travail pour construire localement cette résilience. Les collectivités locales, vous le savez, jouent un rôle essentiel dans la transition écologique, notamment en créant les conditions de partenariat entre les secteurs publics et privés. Avant de conclure mes propos introductifs, je souhaite partager avec vous un projet innovant pour la France que nous avons mis en œuvre dans ma collectivité d'Antibes pour économiser l'eau potable. Le maire d'Antibes, M. Jean Leonetti, va vous présenter en quelques minutes notre projet de réutilisation des eaux usées traitées, REUT, réalisé en partenariat avec VEOLIA, qui traite plus de 9 millions de mètres cubes d'eau par an sur Antibes, eau qui était jusqu'à présent totalement rejetée à la mer. Désormais, une partie de cette eau est réutilisée pour arroser les espaces verts et les rues d'Antibes. Je tiens donc à remercier tout particulièrement notre fidèle partenaire VEOLIA, qui nous apporte un réseau et une expertise considérable en matière d'approvisionnement en eau au niveau local. De tels partenariats public-privé fructueux sont essentiels si nous voulons atteindre localement et à l'échelle européenne les objectifs fixés par l'Union européenne. Je vous remercie de votre présence aujourd'hui à Bruxelles et de votre attention. Merci.
Thank you very much for that. And as Stefan has explained, at the local authority level, there's a huge number of different challenges they need to manage. And increasingly, they need to think about water across all of the things they do, such as urban planning, such as food system planning, etc. Now we're going to hear a little bit more about that project he just mentioned, which is a very concrete example of how a municipality has managed to transform something where they were just dumping in the sea, the treated clean water, but it could be used for some of their other things. So let's watch the video from the chief executive for the Antibes Juan Lepin region city in France. This is Mr. Jean Leonetti.
Nous vivons une période dans laquelle il y a de la sécheresse et donc une utilisation de l'eau qui doit être plus rationnelle. Un retour au bon sens. Est-ce que c'est normal de nettoyer nos rues avec de l'eau potable ? Je m'appelle Jean Leonetti, j'ai la chance d'être le maire d'Antibes, Juan Lepin, et le président de la communauté d'agglomération Sophia Antipolis, qui s'étend de la montagne jusqu'à la mer Méditerranée. Il y a 180 000 habitants recensés. Bien entendu, en période estivale, on triple ce chiffre, et en particulier sur la zone littorale. On s'est posé la question, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas une solution, comme ça existe dans d'autres pays, de réutiliser les eaux usées que nous rejetons en mer et qui pour autant ne polluent pas notre espace maritime puisque la qualité de nos zones de baignade est irréprochable. Donc Bien sûr, on a travaillé dans le cahier des charges et la société VEOLIA a répondu à nos attentes dans ce domaine en faisant en sorte qu'on peut réutiliser les eaux usées.
La solution est innovante parce que ça a été une première nationale. Les exemples que l'on avait jusqu'à présent permettaient de faire de l'irrigation. La demande du maire d'Antibes, c'était clairement de pouvoir aller plus loin et de faire du lavage de voirie durant la période estivale. Je suis Michael Boucher, directeur du territoire des Alpes-Maritimes pour VEOLIA Eau. Le process que l'on a mis en place, c'est une double filtration qui va permettre de retenir toutes les matières en suspension qu'il peut encore rester dans cette eau. Deuxième étape, on va traiter la problématique bactériologique et les virus en faisant passer l'eau sur des rayons ultraviolets qui va en fait éliminer cette pollution résiduelle. Et enfin, la dernière étape, on stocke cette eau pour la mettre à disposition, mais surtout on la chlore. Parce que quand les agents municipaux l'utilisent, il faut qu'on ait un effet rémanent et que ce traitement qui a été fait à la base puisse perdurer dans le temps, notamment lors de l'utilisation. Les facteurs clés de réussite, pour moi, le premier, c'est la volonté politique. On a la chance sur cette agglomération d'avoir un président qui était convaincu. Ce qui est important, c'est de recenser les besoins et les usages. Ensuite, adapter la qualité de l'eau. La station d'Antibes, elle traite et elle rejette 9 millions de mètres cubes à l'année. C'est la consommation en eau potable de la ville d'Antibes. Autant dire qu'on a un vrai potentiel de ressources.
Le deuxième consommateur d'eau après la ville d'Antibes, c'est les ports. Et en particulier, le premier port européen de plaisance qui est le port Vauban à Antibes. Il faut que nous ayons la capacité de nettoyer nos coques de bateaux avec de l'eau qui de toute façon retourne à la mer.
La communauté d'agglomération qui a porté ce projet est très sollicitée aujourd'hui par un certain nombre de communes ou d'agglomérations alentours pour reproduire ce modèle. C'est aussi pour nous une solution d'avenir qui va permettre de continuer à subvenir à un certain nombre de besoins, voire même de maintenir sur le territoire certaines économies qui aujourd'hui peuvent souffrir de la rareté de la ressource en eau.
Ça nous garantit pour l'avenir de continuer à avoir une vie normale, plus conscient probablement des enjeux environnementaux, mais qu'on continue à avoir des arbres, qu'on continue à avoir une végétation équilibrée et qu'on puisse nettoyer nos rues dans période estivale avec de l'eau réutilisée.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And throughout this session, we are seeking to provide you with really very concrete examples of what municipalities are doing to have an impact. And we heard there that the city has, two issues. Number one, it's an issue. It's a city that faces increasingly hot summers. And secondly, its population triples during a period of time. So their water demands during that time are much higher. And they've put in place this process that has a very large impact. So thank you for sharing that. We're now going to pass to sitting on my right, Paul Gatt, who is a member of the UDiTE Executive Committee, a former president, and also the Executive Secretary of the Naxar Local Council in Malta. Also a country that faces this similar problem of large numbers of people coming in, specific additional needs as well as the overall population needs. So let's hear a little bit more about the types of things you've been doing to improve local water resilience. Paul.
Thank you very much and good morning, everyone. Today I will be presenting local water resilience initiatives in Malta. Given Malta's Mediterranean climate and limited freshwater resources, managing water sustainably is crucial. But first, let me provide some context about the structure of local governance in Malta. Malta is a small island, very small island nation with a unique local government structure. Unlike major cities across Europe, Malta's local councils are relatively small. While there are European countries with small municipalities, they often have a higher tier of local governance, such as provinces or regions, which can take certain decisions independently of the central government. In Malta, we have 6 regions, but these 2 are small and limited in scope and resources. They lack the means to make decisions and would typically fall to local authorities elsewhere. Due to the size of our country, environmental and other conditions are quite uniform across regions, leading to many initiatives being managed at national level. Malta faces water scarcity due to its small size, lack of rivers, and highly variable rainfall. Historically, Malta has relied heavily on groundwater, leading to over-extractions and salinization. Addressing these challenges requires innovative and effective water management strategies. The Maltese government has implemented several policies to ensure sustainable water management. Central to these efforts is the Water Catchment Management Plan, which focuses on improving water quality and availability. Regulations also encourage efficient water use and conservation. Desalination is a key component of Malta's water strategy. The country operates several desalination plants that convert seawater into potable water. Advances in technology have made these plants more energy efficient, helping to reduce their environmental impact. In fact, nowadays they use less than half the power they needed some years ago. Malta has made significant strides in water recycling. Treated wastewater is increasingly used for agriculture and landscaping, whereas before it was being dumped at sea, which reducing the demands on freshwater resources. Grey water recycling in homes and businesses also plays a crucial role in water conservation. Rainwater harvesting is a traditional practice in Malta, now enhanced with modern techniques. Many buildings are equipped with systems to collect and store rainwater, which is then used for non-potable purposes like irrigation and flushing toilets. To combat groundwater depletion, Malta has initiated projects to artificially recharge aquifers. These projects involve directing excess rainwater into aquifers, helping to maintain groundwater levels and prevent saltwater intrusion. The Maltese government and local councils have implemented schemes to equip public gardens with efficient irrigation systems. These systems are inexpensive, save a lot of water, and benefit plants and trees. One challenge is the investment required to construct water reservoirs. However, some councils are opting for simpler solutions, such as small water containers installed beneath the soil surface, above ground where depth would not permit, or on higher ground to let water flow by gravity, eliminating the need for pumps. These containers are filled frequently, which is faster than using hosepipe to water the plants and trees. Recently, a particular local council, Hazzabush Local Council, procured a product that can be placed around individual trees without the need for complex plumbing. This product is basically a bag placed around the trunk of a tree, which slowly releases water to ensure efficient irrigation. Such innovative solutions are a testament to the local council's commitment to sustainable water management. Local councils across Malta have been proactive in promoting water resilience. Examples of these are the installation of water harvesting systems in public buildings, public awareness and grey water recycling, the development of green spaces planted with indigenous trees and shrubs and equipped with efficient irrigation systems, improved drainage infrastructure to enhance groundwater recharge, the promotion and distribution of water-saving devices at household levels, and other collective collection projects. These efforts by local councils with the support of central government demonstrate a strong commitment to sustainable water management across Malta. Technology plays a significant role in Malta's water resilience efforts. Smart water management systems use sensors and intelligent devices to monitor and optimize water usage. In agriculture, techniques like drip irrigation help farmers, as we said, to use water more efficiently. Effective wastewater management is essential for Malta's water resilience. The country has established advanced wastewater treatment plants which use multiple stages of treatment to produce high-quality effluent. A key initiative in this area is the New Water project, which produces reclaimed water which exceeds EU standards. This water is used for agriculture irrigation, landscape irrigation and industrial applications, significantly reducing the demand on freshwater resources. Additionally, public awareness campaigns and ongoing research are crucial in promoting the use and acceptance of treated wastewater. These efforts highlight Malta's commitment to sustainable wastewater management and reuse. Despite these efforts, challenges remain. Climate change, population growth, and economic constraints continue to pressure Malta's water resources. However, future plans include further investment in technology, infrastructure, and international collaboration to enhance water resilience. In summary, Malta's approach to water resilience involves a mix of traditional practices and modern innovations. While challenges persist, continued efforts in policy, technology, and community engagement are paving the way for a more sustainable water future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was really interesting to see the range of different things that's being carried out. Looking at the fact that, of course, Ireland, as a Mediterranean island, there is a long history of traditional practices, and how you've brought them up to date. You have revalued them by using technologies to build on that, and some of them are really very low tech, you know, the drip fiddlers, and then putting the plastic bag around the trees. So this isn't necessarily talking about big capital investment that would break the bank of your local authorities. This is about looking at some of your assets and saying, what could we do that's practical, that's low cost, that's involving citizens. So thank you. That's really interesting to hear some of those examples. We're now going to hear, and bear in mind that we're going to be opening the floor, so please, as your questions come in, you're welcome to submit them already via Slido so that they're ready for when the panel is here to answer them. Our next speaker is going to help us understand more about the relationship between a resilient water management system as a way of fighting the climate crisis within an EU Blue Deal. We've had the Green Deal, which was a big key piece of this current mandate. We're about to change mandates, and we're delighted to have one of the experts with us who helped to advise the rapporteur in the Committee of the Regions, which has done a draft initiative, particularly looking at the EU Blue Deal. It's going to be put to the plenary of the Committee of the Regions next month. So we're delighted to have Loïc Charpentier here with us, and he's going to give us a little bit more information. He's also the Water Innovation Policy Manager at Water Europe. Loïc.
So thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you also for the invitation. So as you said, I'm Loïc Charpentier. I'm working for Water Europe. I'm in charge of the advocacy program for this association, and I'm also the expert of Mr. VEOLIA for the opinion on the EU Blue Deal or the Water Resilience Initiative for the Committee of the Regions. So I will give you a little bit of context about the EU initiative related to water from the different institutions. So the first one is the Council of Europe, where you had different conclusions from this institution to push for a strategy, but more on the international perspective. And that is starting for 2 years now, since the Slovenian presidency. The first really strong commitment or action that we saw is from under the Portuguese initiative with the ReWater EU document. That is a little bit more interesting for us because it looks at what we have to do in the European Union. And also we had the Belgian presidency. They organized a water conference, and that was the first time, I think, for 5 years, if I remember well. So it was really interesting to see that all the European water sector met in Leuven on the 12th of March. Here we had a little bit of pity, and if we look at the expected outcome of this conference, we were waiting for the Water Resilience Initiative of the European Union. And so that I will come back a little bit later, but we missed an opportunity at that moment to have this document released. But we have a consensus from the different institutions, in fact. Another one who who did a very good job, I would say, the European Economic and Social Committee. So during the last 2 years, they were pushing for the EU Blue Deal. They released more than 10 opinions, and we are waiting for the last one on the best practices for industrial activities. And here, what is really interesting, it's the CCMI group who push for water, which is not an environmental group, but an industrial group inside this institution. So they took the perspective of industrial change to see where we can improve water management. And in this group, you have employees representative, but also employer representative. So it comes also from the ground. And they were really vocal during the last two years on this topic. And I think it was also good to see their perspective on water, while they do not have they don't have a regulatory power in Europe. Also, the Committee of the Region were active, and here also something quite exceptional, I would say. We expect to have 2 opinions on water before the Water Resilience Initiative, so before the publication of the document from the European Commission. And that is very interesting in that point. You have 2 opinions, in fact, one from the agri perspective and another one from the environmental perspective. Both will be adopted, if I'm not mistaken, on the 20th of June. And inside the discussion that we have here, you had a broad consensus on the position taken by the Committee of the Regions. You also see at that moment the mobilization of the Committee of the Region and partly Mr. VEOLIA to cooperate with 2 other institutions, so the Parliament and the EASC. They co-signed twice a letter that was sent to the European Commission and the head of state with the objective to really push for a strategy or an action plan. You can call it how you want. But the purpose was really to have this holistic perspective. And if we look at the Parliament, you have, of course, Bernie Weiss, who were really vocal. And also what we see, you have more or less 2 to 3 initiatives beyond the regulatory dossier. Water was popping up now in the resolution of the COP27 and COP28. That was new. And also one initiative still blocked and disappearing a little bit. It's a resolution since 2020 in the pipe on water with a holistic perspective. You can move to the next slide, please. So that was the context when we started to work with the Committee of the Region around Christmas for this opinion. And the purpose of this opinion is to push for 2 key elements. The first one is to stress the importance to achieve a water-smart society and to encourage the European Commission and the Member States to work with the local and regional authority. So the collaborative aspect and the inclusive governance was really key in the discussion. And also to call the European Commission to prioritize water during the next mandate, including with an action plan or a strategy. Next slide, please. So if we look at the first part, what we call a water-smart society, it's a concept that was initiated by Water Europe at that moment. It's a society which recognizes the value of water and aims to achieve water security, water resilience, and water sustainability. So you have 5 areas of collaboration: multiple water, circular water, resilience water, inclusive water, and digital water. So you have the definition on the slide, but the purpose is here to make sure that we have a comprehensive approach about water. It's a concept recognized also by the UN Water Unit in the 2 last reports in 23 and 24. And in 24, it was mainly linked to the industrial aspect. And if we look at the report in 23, it was linked to the collaborative aspect and partly with the local actors and stakeholders. Next slide, please. Thank you. So if we zoom a little bit on the European Commission, here the Water Resilience Initiative pop-ups in September in the the speech of von der Leyen, and we were expecting this document on the 12th of March during the Belgium presidency event. Right now it's postponed sine die by the European Commission. We can expect this document after the election and the new composition of the Commission. But it was part, in fact, of a big package with 3 legs. The first one was this report or initiative. The second one was the EU WISE campaign. And the third one was the EU Green Week. So we have the EU Green Week, we have the campaign, but we do not have the document with the material. So it's a little bit funny in that way, but at least it was a good opportunity for all the civil society and the different stakeholders involved in water to be able to produce position to think about water, and that was something that we started during the process of this opinion. We saw more and more stakeholders involved on the topic and going beyond the traditional actors that we can see in the arena when we start to speak about water. So, and partly from the region, it was a strong leadership from the south of Europe, partly from Spain, but also from the Nordic states, Scandinavia, and also the Netherlands were strongly vocal at that moment. And we have different meetings to discuss about water. Next slide, please. With this meeting and the discussion that we have, we recognize, in fact, different key principles that needs to be included in the opinion. The first one is the nexus approach. That was a strong request from several regions, and partly, for example, on the water and soil nexus, or the WEFE nexus, and also with the WEFE plus health. These type of approach were clearly mentioned because generally the European Union produce legislation in silo, and when we need to conjugate all this legislation, it's generally the local and the regional authorities or the actors at the local level that have to find the best solution to match the different KPIs. And that part is really important for the local authorities, but also the utilities, for example, when they have to comply with the different objectives of the legislations. It's also to recognize the international dimension. And by international dimension, we speak about also cross-boundary cooperation within the European Union, but also with other partners around the Mediterranean Sea or non-EU members that we can have. That was also a point we really see coming in the different discussions that we have. A third one that was really key is the consensus. The opinion in the Committee NV of the Committee of the Region was adopted with unanimity, and that is also exceptional. And the number of amendments that we received was really low. So it demonstrates that from the left to the right, I would say, everybody agreed that we need to have a strategy involving the local and regional authorities, and the different aspects, like the nexus, were really important for all of them. We also know that the water is really local. If you look at the opinion taken by the Committee of the Region since 2010, you have more than 10 opinions from the Committee of the Regions. And on different topics, transport, water efficiency, implementation of the legislation. And that was very interesting to see that generally you have more or less the same recommendation at the end in terms of principle from this package of opinion. I will go a little bit further. It's on the access to water and sanitation. That is really key. Generally, it's the local and regional authorities that have to implement this legislation. and with the 2 new articles in the Drinking Water Directive and also with the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, it will become more important for the local and regional authority to implement this type of principle and objective. And also 2 additional aspects, the circular economy and water efficiency, but also the digitalization of the sector were also really important for the representative in the Committee of the Region. Had it helped to tackle water scarcity, but also to master the complexity that you have in terms of management and monitoring for qualitative and quantitative aspects of water. And a last point was also the research and innovation. Generally, the local authorities are involved in some research and innovation funds, but also in LIFE projects, and that the financial perspective and the innovative solutions are really key for the local and regional authorities, because the discussion that we have here was mainly to find new solutions, including social solutions, to make sure that we manage water correctly, and we have the broadest consensus that we can have with the different actors involved. Next slide, please. So all this discussion was wrapped up in 10 conclusions from in the opinion. The first one is really key because it really demonstrates that we have a consensus between 5 institutions. We need a strategy for water, and that is really key, and it has to be in the next mandate of the Commission. Also, the international perspective was really key, and if you look at the next event organized by the Committee of the Region during the Green Week, it will be on the 2nd of July in Carcassonne, and it's back-to-back the meeting of the Haarlem group, which is a group of local and regional authorities from the Mediterranean area, where they will discuss some aspect related to water management, and they expect also an opinion on water from this group. So that is a very big aspect for Mr. Viola and the group, and also a better implementation of the polluter pay principle, and that was not only linked to the recast of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive and the Drinking Water Directive, but also linked to the circular aspect and water efficiency and water reuse, and how you can work with your economic actors. So that was clearly mentioned. We had also a link here with the water-soil nexus. We had a strong feedback and discussion with several representatives of local and regional authorities on this aspect. And I will finish to stress another point. It's transparency and data disclosure, and it's also linked to the digital aspect. When we have the discussion, we had a big challenge is to go on data availability. When the local and regional authorities and the local policymaker needs to take decision, they need to have data and comprehensive data to inform the citizens, and that was and is still a big challenge. So we need to have more data, better quality of data, interoperability of the data, and to disclose data. And here you can see some move also, a push from some utilities that we saw on the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive to have a compliance rate with this legislation to inform the citizens and to facilitate the investment. And that was the purpose of this type of disclosure. When we had the discussion on the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, it's to facilitate the communication with the citizens, to explain why we need to invest and why we need to use the money, the public money, to have a water resilience regions or cities.
Excellent, thank you very much. And we can make sure the link to the draft report is disseminated to participants afterwards. And again, very helpful to understand the political context and some of the key principles that we hope as the next EU mandate will be taking forward, because we didn't manage to get it completed in this one. I've just put up on screen the Slido code because I'm going to be taking questions quite soon and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So please go in and note that. So you go to slido.com or you hold up your phone to this QR code and you need to put in the numbers 3514857. That will take you to the Q&A for this session. So we've been building up a picture of some of the different things that local and regional authorities have been doing. We've been highlighting some of the specific challenges and practices, but one of the things that's different about a local and regional authority is its direct contact with citizens. And you have to take the citizens along with you in everything that you do. And thank you, Loic, for just explaining about the importance of transparency so you can explain and justify to citizens why public money needs to be spent on these kinds of things. And our next presentation, we have a video from colleagues in Spain, is going to talk more about how you dialogue with citizens, because citizens have, if you like, two hats. Number one, they're voters, and they have a say in how money is spent. But secondly, they're consumers, and their behaviours and their practices could affect the amount of water, how it's used, whether it's wasted. So let's watch this message. It's from Ildefonso Corbo Navarrete, the president of COSITAL in Granada. He's the General Secretary of the Granada City Council, which is a member association of UDiTE, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what they've been doing to influence change in water consumption behaviours. So let's watch his video.
Buenos días, me llamo Ildefonso Cobo Navarrete, intervengo en representación de COSITAL, Colegio Oficial de Secretarios, Interventores y Tesoreros de la Administración Local de España, organización integrada en UDiTE. Actualmente ocupo el cargo de presidente de COSITAL Granada, una de las más de 40 organizaciones provinciales que se integran en el Consejo General COSITAL. En el ejercicio de mi actividad profesional como secretario municipal, desempeño el puesto de secretario general del Ayuntamiento de Granada y como tal me corresponde la tarea de secretario del Consejo de Administración de la sociedad responsable de gestionar el ciclo integral del agua de uso urbano. El presidente del Consejo General COSITAL, don José Luis Pérez, le envía un cordial saludo, agradece la invitación de la UDiTE a COSITAL para estar presente en este interesante evento y desea que la misma resulte de gran provecho para todos los asistentes. Por mi parte, solo puedo decir que es un honor tener la oportunidad de intervenir ante tan distinguido foro en el marco de esta Green Week 2024, bajo un lema tan sugerente como hacia una Europa resiliente en materia de agua. Así que quiero agradecer a COSITAL su confianza en mi persona para llevar a cabo esta tarea. Voy a intentar exponer de manera breve y sintética algunas de las actuaciones que actualmente se están implementando en el municipio de Granada y en su entorno metropolitano para influir en los hábitos de consumo de nuestros ciudadanos. Puesto que no hablo inglés ni francés de manera fluida, mi exposición va a ser en español. En España, al igual que en el resto del mundo, hay un avance preocupante del cambio climático, que unido a la incertidumbre geopolítica, hace necesario el despliegue de planes destinados a mitigar sus efectos y aumentar la resiliencia de las ciudades y de las empresas para hacer frente a sus efectos con eficiencia y eficacia. Por otra parte, la disminución de los recursos naturales y el aumento de la demanda son grandes riesgos para nuestro actual sistema. Concretamente, la provincia de Granada, en el sur de España, es una zona que posee un estrés hídrico estructural desde hace tiempo, situación que se está agravando de manera acelerada, por lo que son necesarias nuevas medidas para favorecer la protección del recurso hídrico. En los últimos años ha sido necesario el despliegue de una serie de infraestructuras y de medidas complementarias destinadas a paliar los efectos de la sequía y a potenciar la economía circular. En la ciudad de Granada, la gestión del ciclo integral del agua se lleva a cabo por la empresa municipal de Aguas y Saneamiento de Granada, Emasagra, con capital público perteneciente al ayuntamiento en un 51% y un 49% correspondiente a capital privado conformado por un socio con perfil tecnológico. Es lo que nosotros llamamos una sociedad de economía mixta. Se trata de un modelo de colaboración público-privada en la gestión de servicios municipales que promueve la innovación y el desarrollo y es garantía de éxito en la adaptación a los nuevos escenarios a los que nos enfrentamos. En este modelo, el sector privado aporta su capital y su capacidad para ejecutar los proyectos a tiempo y de acuerdo con el presupuesto, mientras que el ayuntamiento conserva la responsabilidad última de que el servicio se preste de una manera que beneficie el interés general y propicie el desarrollo y una mejora en la calidad de vida. Masagra, en sus diferentes planes estratégicos, incluye ejes, acciones y objetivos que dan respuesta formal a aspectos ambientales, sociales y de buen gobierno. Esto lo ha convertido en una empresa referente a nivel local, nacional e internacional. Muestra de ello es su reconocimiento por diferentes organismos, entre estos la ONU, como un referente en la economía circular por su modelo de biofactoría, basado en la circularidad de sus residuos y en el uso de recursos energéticos generados en sus propios procesos, llegando a generar hasta un 140% de la energía que necesita para operar, dando un segundo uso a los residuos generados en la depuración de aguas residuales y con un retorno del agua depurada al medio natural en las mejores condiciones para su aprovechamiento posterior en sectores como la agricultura. Sus instalaciones se han convertido en una fuente de innovación continua en la que colaboran centros de investigación y universidades. Asimismo, dichas instalaciones son visitadas por miles de escolares cada año, donde se les educa en valores ambientales. En definitiva, unas instalaciones que crean impacto positivo en nuestro ecosistema, a la vez que influyen en la formación de los consumidores más jóvenes. Desde 2019, la sociedad mantiene la neutralidad climática en los 3 alcances de sus operaciones, siendo la primera empresa del sector del ciclo integral del agua de España en conseguirlo, y por ello, en 2001, se le otorgó por el Gobierno regional el Premio Medio Ambiente de la Junta de Andalucía a la neutralidad climática. Todo lo anterior repercute en el sentimiento de orgullo de la ciudadanía del municipio de Granada ante la consecución de estos logros. El impacto en los precios de la energía eléctrica que ocasionó en 2022 el conflicto bélico en Rusia y Ucrania se acusó de manera leve por Emasagra, ya que para entonces habían disminuido considerablemente su dependencia de energías fósiles gracias a la producción de energía renovable. Esto animó a la sociedad a seguir por esta senda y a presentar un plan de inversiones para la descarbonización, con objeto de aumentar la resiliencia energética de la empresa, que lleva asociado un mecanismo de financiación denominado canon de inversiones, que no es otra cosa que un ingreso propio de naturaleza tributaria que grava la utilización del agua de uso urbano con el fin de posibilitar la financiación de infraestructuras hidráulicas de cualquier naturaleza correspondiente al ciclo integral del agua. En 2023 se llevó a cabo la redacción de un plan de resiliencia hídrico, consistente en la mejora de infraestructuras como redes de abastecimiento y saneamiento para evitar la pérdida de agua durante el transporte y distribución de los mismos, y también en la búsqueda de nuevas fuentes de recursos hídricos a través del tratamiento terciario y la reutilización de agua residual para usos como riego de jardines, riego de cultivos y generación de nuevos ecosistemas. Algunas de estas inversiones ya se están ejecutando gracias a la financiación obtenida por el canon asociado al plan. Para ser más eficaces en la protección del recurso hídrico es fundamental involucrar a la ciudadanía, aportándoles conocimientos y herramientas para influir sobre sus comportamientos, tanto en el consumo del agua como en el uso que se hace de los residuos que generan. Es fundamental el compromiso de los usuarios y para ello Emasagra ha considerado que es necesario estar cerca. Entre los beneficios que ofrece a los ciudadanos destaca el control de sus consumos y la detección de anomalías en tiempo real a través de avisos y alarmas, lo que supone reducir la cantidad de agua que se pierde en fugas domésticas. La transformación digital no puede obviar a la ciudadanía y sobre todo a los más vulnerables, aspecto clave que cubre el programa Contigo de Emasagra, con 3 ejes estratégicos: la ciudadanía en el centro de su gestión, digital y accesible y socialmente comprometido. El programa Contigo se centra en garantizar que toda la ciudadanía, sin excepción, puede acceder a los servicios de Emasagra y sobre todo asegurar una buena atención a las personas en situación de vulnerabilidad. El programa intenta identificar las barreras digitales, de comprensión, de accesibilidad o económica y ofrecer soluciones excepcionales para situaciones excepcionales. La ciudadanía es parte fundamental del ciclo integral del agua y la concienciación de un uso responsable del agua es muy importante. Emasagra ha desplegado programas de concienciación a la sociedad en general, a través de prensa y redes sociales, y en particular a niños y mayores, a través de charlas en colegios, visitas a sus instalaciones y centros de asociaciones vecinales, en los cuales se explican hábitos de consumo adecuados para evitar el derroche del recurso. Esto ha dado como resultado que el consumo de agua por habitante y día se haya situado en 121 litros habitante en consumo doméstico, teniendo en cuenta que el mínimo vital establecido por organizaciones como la ONU está en 100 litros habitante y día. Las medidas implementadas por la empresa también están encaminadas a la consecución de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible de la Agenda 2030. Más allá de dar cumplimiento al ODS 4, agua limpia y saneamiento, existen otros como el ODS 4, educación de calidad, el 10, reducción de las desigualdades, o el 16, paz, justicia e instituciones sólidas, que informan los programas y acciones desarrollados para mejorar los hábitos de consumo de los ciudadanos. Simultáneamente, existe una importante inversión en iniciativas sociales que se enmarcan en los siguientes ámbitos: protección del patrimonio arqueológico, bienestar social, salud, igualdad y educación, desarrollo socioeconómico. Para concluir, me gustaría resaltar que tanto el Ayuntamiento de Granada como el Masagra no se limitan a la gestión del ciclo del agua, su distribución y saneamiento, sino que existe un fuerte compromiso con el entorno, los recursos naturales y las personas. Mediante todas las acciones expuestas se ha desarrollado una intensa actividad con el propósito de llegar a la ciudadanía por medio de los diferentes canales y sensibilizarla sobre el correcto uso de los recursos hídricos, así como la protección del medio ambiente. Ayuntamiento y empresa demuestran así su esfuerzo y trabajo para alcanzar el compromiso de una Europa más resiliente en materia de agua. Un saludo afectuoso desde Granada, España, una ciudad maravillosa que desde Cosital le animamos a visitar y a disfrutar. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you very much for that. And there we heard a sort of overview of the approach that starts from the fact that the local authority has 51% of the utility that is a public-private partnership, and how that gives them a greater sense of control and accountability. We heard about different activities that they do, the engagement with citizens, the information and awareness, the visits of school kids to the facilities to make sure they also understand their role in all of this. So it was really interesting to hear how also in a country that would experience water stress, water shortage, and also high demand from agriculture, how they were approaching the water management at a local level. We're now going to try and understand, across Europe, what are the best practices that are being put into place, and how can we learn from them around water resilience. So I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker. That's Germaine Albertini, who's the Research and Innovation Partnerships Director at VEOLIA. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your invitation. I will start with a key figure, 3 key figures here, showing how water is becoming an issue for the planet and for the cities. You see 90% of the natural disasters are linked with water issues, droughts, floods, storms. We have been in 2023 facing a flooding, and it concerned more than 1.8 billion of people. Then it's really an issue that is becoming an issue for the cities and the territories. Next, please. I will start to introduce VEOLIA activities rapidly. VEOLIA, it's more than 4,000 drinking water management, more than 3,500 wastewater plants. Then we can say it's a leader in the waste management. The first challenge for us, the number one challenge, is climate change adaptation, of course. And we will come with, what I will present, it's a portfolio of references that goes from low technology solution to more advanced technology solution. We launched this year Green Up, our strategic program, and VEOLIA made the commitment to save fresh water, to save 1.5 billion cubic meters of fresh water by 2027. That's been tomorrow. Here you see we used for years to look at the urban water cycle. And today, we need to enlarge and to have to take into account a large water cycle. That means to start from precipitation, aquifers, rivers, to the end, to the ocean. And the solutions are there. We can address different solutions. We need to onboard citizens and local stakeholders. And I want to showcase an example. In France, we launched ECODO. ECODO is a coalition of stakeholders, public and private, with citizens, to share the best practice for saving water. And I don't know if it's the same, you have the same initiative around Europe, but it's really important to be able to be around the table and discuss and to share this best practice. Next. Here I will present the natural-based solution. Maybe you are all aware of these solutions that are green infrastructure, in fact. And this natural-based solution are are acting as a sponge or purifiers. Then you will see in this slide that we can have a natural-based solution upstream drinking water plant in order to protect the resource, the water resource, and also at the upstream or wastewater treatment plant to manage the flooding, to better prevent floods and to organize through ponds, wetland, the management of water risks. And also the last usage of natural-based solution could be downstream of a wastewater treatment plant to slow down the water cycle and to act as a polishing to improve the quality of the water. Then you will see in the next slide different example. The first picture here, it's in Lyon to protect the resource, the water, upstream drinking water plant. The last one, the industrial wastewater management, it's in China, for example, after an industrial park, and here to purify the water before releasing it to the river and the sea. And I will, next slide. I will focus on an example in Alicante that was presented at the COP25 as an excellent example, a Spanish excellent example as a climate change adaptation. And then here, the Alicante was under the risk of flooding, and what they did, they made an urban park of 3.6 hectares with a green space and ponds, and it enabled to store 45,000 cubic meters of water. And in 2019, they had floods, and they could store 22,000 cubic meters with no damage for the city. And it's really a good example. And because we had this green infrastructure, the cost you see here was about 3 million euros. And if we add grey infrastructure, it would have been 11 million euros for a storage of only 6,000 cubic meters. Then you see the difference, and I wanted to give you some prices for you to better understand where the challenge is. I'm not speaking about the biodiversity, the impact on biodiversity, and the social benefit, because it's a park and people can walk through the parks. Here, the next one is Vallée de la Bièvre. And here the same, the population was under flooding risk. And we had 200,000 inhabitants in this valley. And we decided to organize and to manage the water through 17 storage basins or ponds. And we use for that a remote automated system in order to better monitor and manage all these ponds and prevent flooding. And since this water management, the valley didn't experience anymore any flooding, but the valley next to them, the other valley, were regularly experiencing floodings. Then here you see I wanted to focus on the tool that we can implement in order to improve the monitoring, the prevention, and the adaptation to the water risk. Next one. Then now I will speak about water reuse. Then if we look at VEOLIA, we have more than 250 water reuse references all around the world, you can see. And you see this different point, green, orange, red, is the different usage that we can have. Then today, what we have today in our reuse references, 40% is for agriculture and 35% for urban usage, cleaning the street, the green areas. And after we have drinking and industrial for 14%. What we see in the global increased demand is that every year we have an increase of 6 to 8% of the demand. And it's mainly industries and agriculture. Why industries? For example, their water intake regulation is stricter and stricter. They cannot, they have to go through administration, authorization, and that's why there is an increase on demand of reuse. Then for the reuse water, there is two main drivers, we can say, is regulation and social acceptability. Next. Then maybe you don't know exactly what is the difference between a treated water and a reused water. And to simplify the message, I can say that the treated water is the water that is coming from a conventional wastewater treatment plant. And if we want to reuse, we need to add an additional step of treatment. But it can be only sand filtration or chlorination, or more, if we want to do indirect potable reuse, use reverse osmosis. What I want to say is that there is not only one technology for reuse. It's a fit for purpose. And I will give you some examples. Here in the US, West Basin, typically we have different line of treatment for different usage. We have 5 different usage that goes from irrigation, industrial water usage for boiler feeding water, cooling tower water, and for each application we have a dedicated treatment line. Because we don't need to have air quality for cooling water, for a boiler or other usage. The next one. Here I will have Spanish references that were presented in the video, Granada and Barcelona. Then we call them eco-factories because they are the combination of resource recovery from sludge, producing biogas, electricity, and water reuse. Then that means that the wastewater treatment plant can be efficient, energy sufficient, and can ever sell some energy. They are also producing different water for reuse, then from indirect potable reuse in Barcelona, for example, to water for green areas. And there too, they have different treatments. Next one. Then I wanted also to make a point about digital and digital transformation. I think with our platform, we can optimize and be more agile. Thanks to the combination of digital, we have billions of data today, and we have experts, operators that can come up with the best services. And for example, for water performance survey, we can predict and do some prevention for climate events. And that is really important. Also, we can manage water loss and reduce the network losses. And that is also another point that is really important. Next one. Here, we want to describe what is the current situation. We need, of course, more need for regulatory and financial incentives. Then you see the challenge. In Europe, only 11% of the 11% of the population is under water scarcity. We could increase the reuse by 6 times. Of course, we have to make sure that we always maintain the e-flow of a river, not to have all the water from a wastewater treatment plant for reuse, because today we know that sometimes the wastewater at the river e-flow. There is also a lack of national experience, and maybe if we had some financial mechanism that could help to fast roll out the reuse solution, it will be good. We see that we had a regulation in June 2023 and in October 2023. Then what we need now is that each member state should have a reuse roadmap tailored to their national needs, because I think that the conditions and the context are really different from one member state to another one. And the conclusion? Here's the conclusion. Then the first point: consume less, reduce network losses, as we were saying. Developing new resources are really to save fresh water. And after, we need, of course, a strong and clear regulatory framework. It's really essential. We also need to accelerate the collaboration between public and private sectors. And I was presenting the ECODO initiative, for example. And of course, to have a public awareness and acceptances. Then the emergency is here. We have the solution, and we need now to speed up the implementation.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was interesting to see different perspectives and how different parts of the world are addressing this, whether it was in California or it was in Morocco and as well as Europe. So other parts of the world are facing similar challenges. And I think the key message I got there from you, the emergency is now. We're not talking about how we deal with climate change in 10 years or 15 years. It's now. And some of the stuff you presented was really big infrastructure. Some of it was not particularly expensive, and clearly the natural-based solutions were ones which could be cost-effective as well as delivering positive change. So that was really interesting. I saw the headline figure that the potential for reuse of water is 6 times what we do now. And of all of the countries in Europe, France is the one where we've got the most potential. And I spend a lot of my time working in health, and I thought it was really interesting that one of the big blocks at a regulatory level to the reuse is the health authorities, who are of course concerned about bacteriological contamination, viruses and others. So this is a clear area where the sort of coherence of policies working together could help move us forward. Just as a reminder, after our next speaker, I'm going to open the floor for questions. Those of you who are here, you can put your hand up. We've already had 5 questions in from Slido, so our panel will be ready to answer that in a minute, but feel free to submit more questions through Slido. Now, we're going to sort of move from that big picture down to something very specific, and we're going to hear a case study from a project that's funded by the EU's LIFE programme, and it's going to give us a really concrete example of what can you do at the local level to engage people in reusing their water. And this is the Green Lead project. Ruben Wentic, please go ahead.
Thank you for the introduction and the chance to explain our projects. The Green Lead project is about saving water for reuse, and especially rainwater, and make it more safe than especially in case of legislation which is needed for close contact with people. Are human. In some countries you are not allowed to use rainwater in ponds or fountains, so you have to add extra technical solutions. Next slide, please. As said, the Green Lead project is an EU LIFE funded project, and we are there with 6 partners, which are the TU Delft, the Politecnica, the Universidad Politecnica de Madrid, the community of Alphen aan den Rijn and Los Ajones, and Apria, who delivers the Green Lead, and Field Factors, who delivers the infiltration system, which I will explain later. The problem that is addressed is the increasing pressure on both drainage and water supply systems due to the more frequent droughts, as already mentioned, the extreme rainfall, and increasing urbanization, which leads to bigger pressure on our water systems, and which also causes that the rain is not being infiltrated by natural systems anymore because of the paved systems we all developed to make our urban areas livable. Next slide, please. So, as I already mentioned, we need to save water for close contact with humans. That could be in fountains, playgrounds, even swimming pools, or irrigation for green roofs and green facades. So we could use this water for different applications, as already mentioned by our other presenters. Next slide, please. So how does it work? This is the example of Ionis, on which we have a loop system. The loop system is a system that is not taking usage of the subsoil system, but takes the water into a retention tank or the deposit tank. So we collect the water from the city areas, from roofs or paved areas. We collect it in a retention system. It could also be in surface water or some other retention systems. Then it's been treated in our biofilter. That's a sand filter. It's planted by plants, so it also shows very green and fresh in an urban area. After that, it is treated by lead. So the pathogens, the viruses and bacteria that could be still in the water, are killed, and so the water is safe for reuse in pounds and fountains, of course. So the next slide, please. In Alphen aan de Rijn, that's in the Netherlands, we use a different system. That's our main system that we are promoting by field factors, and that's where we take use of the subsoil system. After the catchment from the city area, we have to get a buffer tank or retention system, because in heavy rain or storm, the water collected is too many to process directly into our infiltration system. So we need some extra retention. That could be the sewer system itself, but it could also be other systems like parks or crates that are integrated in the urban areas. From that we take up the water to our biofilter treatment after disinfection, and then we put it into the subsoils. In the Netherlands we use the first water layer that's contained between two clay layers. There is brackish water, and if you infiltrate fresh water, you create your own water aquifer, your fresh water aquifer that stays there right where you put it. So if you put it there when there's a storm or when there's a big rainstorm, you could save it in the subsoil. So you prevent flooding, overflowing of sewage, and other extreme rain events impacts. This water could be saved there for many years, or just for another few months when the drought of the summer arrives, when you have cause for reuse of the water, which you can take up in fountains, ponds, or irrigation of the green roofs, facades, or other green areas in the cities. This water could also be used for industrial use, of course, or other public uses. We are not allowed to deliver it to individual use into houses in the Netherlands, because it's not allowed by our own legislation. Next slide, please. So the Grid Line aims to support the transition to a circular water system. We try to make a linear system into a more circular system by preventing the rainwater being transported to the sea and the runoff from the city being transported into the surface water, which ends up in the sea. And we do that by we want to prove in this project the technical viability of the Greenland integrated concept. We develop and validate the business case of the combined nature-based and LED solution for rainwater harvesting and reuse. And we support wider implementation by developing a roadmap to market uptake. And we want to inform and advocate the legislative reform to standardize infiltration and reuse standards. Even though the Netherlands has been treating water for a long time, and we have the water board for more than 700 years, we have not one legislation in the Netherlands which covers all the Netherlands. But every water board has its own regulation and its own permitting. So even though it's a small country, we face multiple problems by implementing those systems in the different regions in the Netherlands, and that counts for Europe and the world as well. Every country has its own regulation, so that's one of our big challenges in this fields. Next slide, please. So successes, we have an integral approach addressing the multiple climate adaptation challenges together. So we prevent flooding, we prevent droughts, heat stress, and we prevent sewage from overflowing and health issues. We integrate novel technologies and validate it through full-scale applications. It's easy to replicate in other cities or other countries in the world or Europe. And disinfection brings the recharge of aquifers to a wider variety of use cases. The challenges, as mentioned, is of course legislation for infiltration and reuse. The drink water is still cheap in most countries, which makes the economical business case hard to discuss. And in many cities, there's a lack of space in urban areas. There's not really a place where you can put in a system, although our system takes up a small space. If you have a space of 40,000 square meters urban area, we only use 150 square meters for our infiltration system and biofilter and our technical hub. To infiltrate the water into the subsoils and to make it reusable, available for use again. Next slide, please. So our system is nature-based and lead-based. We have a rainwater treatment for reusing green cities, for industrial use or use for sports facilities, etc., etc. We have different systems in Europe already. There's one in Madrid, in one of the parks. We are talking to Ab InBev in Mexico at the moment to implement a system over there. And we have been reached out by Malaysia and Barbados after we won the WEF, the World Economic Forum Top Innovator Prize. So we see that there's a lot of impact and business to be done by infiltrating water and make cities more green and livable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, really interesting to see how the solutions that you propose, you've got one in the Netherlands, one in Spain, they're quite different, and because it depends on the geography of the place, both the specific challenges around supply and demand that they have to deal with and the geography. And in Amsterdam, you could slot it between the two layers, and in Madrid, it needed to be something else. Thank you very much. I'm now going to open the floor. I have a number of questions already from Slido, and maybe we can pop them up on the screen so you can see them. You can upvote to tell us which question that we should go for first. But is there anyone here in the room who'd like to take the floor or make a comment or ask a question to our panel? Now is your time. Yes, please, would you like to just, you need to press the button and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the beautiful presentations. I'm Lucette Kroon of the Dutch Water Authorities. I'm Chair International. I was wondering, I think I have to address Mr. Carpentier, if I pronounce it right. You had about the 10 ways of 10 possibilities that you gave. And what I miss actually in this sheet is the source. What doesn't go in should not be taken out. So I miss that kind of approach. And maybe to all the panelists, I don't know how far your political influence go, but I think you have influence. Why not? Because all of us are really supportive of the water idea, and we know how important the essence of water is in economics, in food security, in healthcare. Why not all go for a commissioner of water after EU elections? And I would like to see if it can have your support and what can you do about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll start with Loike. Perhaps you can answer specifically where in your list of 10 guiding principles is the issue of the source of the water dealt with. And then, panel, I'd like to see if you're behind the idea of a commissioner for water in the next mandate.
So thank you for the question. I will jump first on the Commissioner for Water. I would say a Vice President would be very good for managing water in general and have this holistic perspective, because it's what we miss. To be frank on the sources, I will be very practical. I have a limited number of characters in this document. So I had a lot of issues that is not inside or challenges. Sources where, of course, the question of the sources and protecting the sources and make sure that we have a long-term management of that to protect against pollution and also, for example, infiltration of salt in water. that was touched, and we have it all across a little bit the different points. So when we speak about water reuse, it's to avoid overconsumptions of water. If we speak about nature-based solution, also is to protect the sources. We had also a paragraph on water and soil nexus, and that was more on the infiltration part. So you have a little bit everywhere. Unfortunately, the format constraint that I had, we had to make a choice, and I'm just the expert on that point. So the political choice of the 10 priorities that are cumulative, of course, was done also by Mr. VEOLIA on that, but the discussion is here, and we try to pack the majority of the element. But of course, the protection at source and the discussion of the quantitative aspect and also the protection of the sources were really discussed, and we try to integrate everywhere. But yeah, it's very difficult to pack it all in one document.
Before you finish, Loic, I'd written down something that I forgot to ask you, which was you mentioned the WEFE plus H nexus. You said there was the soil and water nexus and the WEFE. Can you just tell us what WEFE plus H meant? I got that the H was health, but what's WEFE?
So WEFE is water, environment, and food, yes, and economy, if I'm not mistaken. But to be frank, I always use the abbreviation, so I start to be...
Thank you. That was just to make sure that we all had the same terminology. The idea for a commissioner for water, does that make sense? Do you think that would give us the leadership that we need? And is it, leadership, is it when you say you want to have a commissioner for health or even a vice president, the implication is that someone with the political weight to knock heads together with we've just talked about the WEFE, the department that deals with food, the department that deals with health and security, animal welfare, economy, urban planning, can all be sat around the table, and you've got someone with the power to get them to talk together. I mean, I assume that's the key message. So, colleagues here, is that the key missing link? You think that we need at European level that senior leadership with a vision and a holistic vision for water, and is that what we would need to make a difference?
I think we should consider water as an horizontal topic, and maybe then should be in charge in the portfolio the VP strategy at the European level.
So there's a vote for having someone at VP level with that strong arm capacity to force people to sit in the room.
Yes, definitely. Being so important, I mean, it's a very good idea having someone in that political power to do things.
I totally agree on that. I think water runs not only from one river through one country, but it runs through whole Europe, and it's the basis of our life. So I think it's very, it should be there already, I think. I'm surprised it's not there.
Thank you. Maybe if we could see the Slido questions up on screen, because we've already had quite a few in, and you, the audience, you can sort of give an upvote, so that gives us an issue to go to the top of the agenda. At the moment, we've got a message, how does cities manage the competing demands for water between their own population and the surrounding agricultural areas that need water to feed those same citizens? So this is a question maybe that we'd like to reflect on. I don't know, Paul, if that's an issue that how do you manage the competing demands? Perhaps in Malta it's more about your tourist demands versus the city. Loic, I don't know if this is something that was discussed in the Committee of the Region's own report. So this is a clear message. How do we manage competing demands?
In our case, I don't believe there are competing demands with regards to agriculture and community. But as you said, definitely being a country where we take a lot of tourists in throughout the year, that is one that water demand increases. However, no, there's definitely no demands, because through second-class water, we call it, that water which is being reused through after being treated. No, in that case, there's no competition.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I will take a little bit also the hat of Water Europe in that case, because we were discussing about in the Committee of the Region about how you can, yes, make sure that every use and user can have the right quantity of water. Mr. Viola is coming from Occitania. You have still right now some villages without tap water, so they need to bring by truck water. And we are still in a winter mode, I would say, right now. It demonstrates that we have a problem in terms of water availability and the challenge. And we need to make sure that we give the water for the citizens, of course, but also we need to have some priority, and that needs to be done at the river basin, I would say, because in some region, it's not the same type of priority that you can put on the table. And here, I think the main tool that we see, in that case more with Water Europe, you have different type of processes for collaboration and to facilitate the exchange between the different actors. So you might have community of practice, which is quite coming from the Netherlands and the Benelux generally. You have also the living labs and water-oriented living labs that are pushed now by 30 countries through a research program called Water for All. And that was initiated by the Scandinavian in the 70s. So you have different formats where you can push for collaboration. Generally, when we see that also through the European Research Project also, people are more keen to go for water reuse, to implement the solution, and to understand how the financial flow will finance this type of solution, technical or not technical solutions. And it's here where we are. And one point that we didn't touch also right now, it's the financial aspect. The local and the regional authorities, in the debate that we have also inside the Committee of the Region, was really key to make sure that we have the money on the table. You have different, right now, funds to finance water. They are spread across different programs, but we still miss some we have still some white spots. And if we want to go for a transition, a blue transition, I would say, we will need to have an additional funds to fill in this gap, and also to have more visibility on the money. And the local authorities need this type of fund. That is one of the recommendations that we have also in the Committee of the Region's opinion, to make available money for the local and regional authorities to implement the solution that they need to implement to make sure that we have the right water at the right quality for all the uses and users on the territory.
Thank you very much. We've got more questions on Slido to go through, but is there anyone else in the room who would like to ask a question or make a comment at this point? Please go ahead.
I would like to comment because I think this is one of the problems that we face in near future. There is water scarcity, and with temperature rise, there will be a more demand for the same questions that we have now for water. So even if everything stays the same, but the temperature will rise, then we will need more water. What we see in economics as well, we have, for instance, the infrastructure for a database and servers, and they ask more water. The hydrogen economy will ask for fresh water. So I think this is a question that we should not put to the future. We have to face it now. And in the Netherlands, we sort of have around the IJssel Lake, we have a prioritizing, which means that some water users will be scaled off if there is not sufficient water. I don't say it's a blueprint, but the fact that we should discuss this issue is really should not be put to the future, but put now on the table.
Thank you very much. Maybe this is something that we could invite you, Ruben, to reflect on a little bit, because I think on one of your slides you had as one of the challenges for your project is cheap drinking water. Yeah. That limits the business case for some of the things that are going to require investment for change. And yet, you know, one of the great things about Europe, one of the things that citizens most appreciate is things like access to drinking water compared to other regions in the world, clean, treated drinking water available to almost everyone by turning a tap is one of the sort of great features that defines quality of life. And yet you're saying that's actually a brake on innovation. It de-incentivizes this. And you've just said we need to start talking about the money. And at some point, we will have to start making a strategic prioritization about when the water shortages get worse than they are now, because they already exist, who gets it first? And those are quite political issues. So, Ruben, how do we fix this? People want cheap drinking water, but on the other hand, that means it's harder to make the case for maybe private sector investment.
Yeah. Well, in the Netherlands, we take water for granted. That's there. Drinking water is there. For €1, you can get 1,000 liters of water. So that's ridiculously cheap. We also think that being safe in the Netherlands, although we are below sea level, is there for everyone and will be there forever. So we are feeling this urgency less than other people sometimes, because our systems are that perfect at this moment, but they are breaking down also because of climate change and growing populations. But the drink water price is the price of the water production price. They are not allowed to make profit on it, so we are also not able to increase the price to prevent future problems. And the business case we calculate on reducing drinking water is almost impossible on economical level because systems will cost you at least €3,000 to make your home more water reuse friendly. So you have to put in extra infrastructure into your house, double piping, and then you have to invest in the system. That should be also €3,000 at least, and so it's €6,000. And for that amount of money, you can buy 6 million liters of drinking water, which you will not consume your whole life. So the payback period on those investments is at least 100 years almost. So I think we should be aware that the urgency of saving water is bigger than the financial impact. We should, and the transition costs money, and that's what we forget in this calculation discussions with municipalities. They always talk about the money, but the transition of this water issue should cost money, because we also had the energy transition. We had before that we had the transition of having a sewage in our cities, or having drink water available in our cities. These were very big investments also, and that's what we have forgotten. So the next step and the change we face, there is a financial impact on that, but we should accept that. So we shouldn't talk about business cases in these discussions. We should talk about the future impact we can make, and not forget about the money, because that's important, but we should take that for, it will cost us money. It's not for free.
Thank you. So there's a warning there that costs lie ahead, and at the moment, and this sounds like a very particular situation in the Netherlands, that companies that provide water are not allowed to make a profit. That's not the case in all other countries, but that's a quite specific example to think about. Jeremy, let me invite you to come in, because obviously you work around the world, and the economic case is very different in other parts of the world, and where perhaps water is more expensive. So can you tell us, we can benefit from your global experience here. When we talk about this sort of economic circle, people want cheap drinking water. It's good for health, it's good for everything else, but that disincentivizes investments in other things. Have you found the conversation to be different in different parts of the world? Is there something about the European mindset that has previously prioritise getting cheap, clean water in homes that's different elsewhere, that makes it easier to innovate?
For example, in the US today, there is a strong investment on drinking water for the PFAS treatment that will increase the water price. There is different situation because we have different regulation also. There is also in some countries, because they were facing droughts, and for example, Singapore, Israel, we see that it's 100% reused water. Then the cases are really different depending on the region, what they are experienced, what the regulation is. But what I wanted to say also is in Lille, for example, north of France, we had a new type of contract, a contract on performances. Then if we reduce the consumption, for example, to work on the network losses, and then we will have incentives. And if not, if we don't reach our target, we will have penalties. You know, things are changing in Europe too, and it's true that we need to be all around the table, because, for example, in Spain, for the agriculture, it can be really expensive if you don't have any access of any water, and you have to use desalination plants. In another part of Europe, water for agriculture is still at a really good price, but in other areas, it can be also really expensive. And then, yeah, it's different.
Thank you. I'm going to take a question from Slido that I think is best addressed to Paul, because it says, you know, can we learn more between island communities where, you know, on an island, it's often quite small, colleagues have multiple hats on. They might be involved in the utility, they might be involved in tourism, in the local government. So could the islands, you know, Cyprus, Malta, the Grand Canaries and others, could they connect together, maybe using the Islands 2030 or the CEP? Paul, are islands with sort of similar challenges already coming together? Are you engaging with them? Is there a lot of sharing happening?
As I said, since we are very, very small, we're not directly involved in water strategies. So basically that's more on a national level. But yes, they do collaborate. There's the water agency collaborates with I'm not sure which countries they do collaborate with, but definitely, because we need to learn through experience as well to other systems, and so definitely it's very important to collaborate.
Thank you. We've got about 15 minutes left in our conversation together. So if there's anyone here who'd like to raise a question, you had your hand up and then you pulled it down immediately. Okay, I still have a few more questions on Slido that we could perhaps reflect on. And we've got a question here that says, you know, how does the principle of polluter pays get applied at local level? So we just heard from Jeremy about in the US, they've recognised the enormous cost of trying to get PFAS, which is what we call the forever chemicals that we found in the news in the last few weeks. They found that in almost all of our waterways, our natural waterways in Europe. So this is a problem for us too, and it's really expensive to get it out. So this principle of the polluter pays, so far at the table we've talked about, you know, demand and supply and how we manage all of this, but there is this other element that additional costs get added in when we need to deal with pollution. How at local level does polluter pay work? Is there anyone who on the panel who's able to respond to that? Nope. Okay, then we'll move on. Our panel may not be able to. We'll put a pin in that one and say that's a question that needs to be answered. I saw you nodding at the back. Is there a comment you want to make on that?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm afraid it take a lot of time, but in my water authority at this moment we have a very large-scale pollution with PFOS, which is prohibited at this moment, but it came from defense. There's an aircraft base near Leeuwarden, the city of Friesland, and well, we have a real large area which is polluted now. And we can't handle it as water authority because we have to take away the source first. So now they came out and they say we take responsibility. So that's good because it's national government and a regional water authority. So I hope this is an example for other countries, because PFOS is one of the things that we will find in the near future in almost every place where they used in the fire brigades, they used the PFOS in the foam. And normally it was common use that the foam was like diminished in quality in a week time, and they put the foam on grass, land or whatsoever. So we have this huge PFOS bomb actually in the fields. So now it's with rain or with groundwater, it comes to the surface water and the sludge in the waterways. So we really have a large problem, and this is one example that will probably rise in near future everywhere where this PFOS foam has been used. So, and this is just one example of the PFAS family. And I think we have to hold the polluter responsible. And well, maybe good examples will give follow-up in other countries as well. So I hope the national government will take its responsibility.
Thank you. Ruben, maybe I can come to you because if I've understood your case study correctly, both of them were about how cities could put in place mechanisms to manage excess water through rainfall. So we're not trying to talk about the major part of wastewater treatment, which is, our sewage is filled with hormones, it's filled with antibiotics, it's filled with illegal drugs, and also it's filled with chemicals. There is a huge amount that needs to be done for waste treatment. Whereas the nature-based solutions, which we're using sort of aquifers and plants and everything else, that's clearly dealing with a very different set of things. So the solutions we looked at are how we manage the fact that, like here in Belgium, we've had the heavens open on us most days since last October. Yeah. I think the records show it has been the rainiest year since records began. So this is just part of the water cycle you're dealing with.
Yeah, rainwater is clean, but when it touches ground, it's not so clean anymore. In Florida, they even say it's wastewater when it touches ground. So in the Netherlands, we have legislation that prevents rainwater infiltration without purification if you want to use it for reuse. So in Belgium, it's not allowed to infiltrate at this moment because they want to protect their natural aquifers from infiltration of polluted water. And that's why we added our biofilter to our systems. The biofilter is a sand treatment, same you could compare it to the water treatment that's been done by water companies who use river water for infiltration in the Dutch dunes. They have the sand filtration, which pre-treats the river water before it's allowed to infiltrate into the Nature 2000 areas. So that's highly protected. So in the Netherlands, we are legal to infiltrate for reuse, but in Belgium, there's other legislation. So, and that's in Germany as well, because they say the first layers of ground that infiltrates the water takes out most of pollution that's on the surface. So, and the pollution in rainwater could be heavy metals from roofs or cars, oil, dust, organic materials and pathogens or other biological or organic pollutants. And we take care that we take out most of it by the sand filtration, and then it's allowed. But every country has its own legislation on that. So if we have to move to France or to Germany or to Denmark, we have to adjust our system probably to reach out to reach the numbers they have for these pollutants in their legislation. Yeah. So although it's very clean, the rainwater, it carries pollution as well, which could be effective on the natural aquifers that are already there. So you have to be very careful, very cautious with what you're doing with rainwater caught on surfaces. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I'm really struck listening to you how geography dependent this is. each region or each country has very specific geographies to deal with, and therefore that has shaped the way they approach things. You've also mentioned that in the Netherlands, there's no national framework. It's all dealt with at very local level. Loic, let me bring you in because, there's been 10 reports, you said, that have come out of the Committee of the Regions. How much of this very different geography and different needs were addressed in this? Because we're calling for a framework and a strong move forward at European level in the next mandate. But what works in Belgium is not going to work in Germany. It's not going to work in other countries. They've got these sort of historic cultural approaches that they think are appropriate for what they've got there. But this is a much bigger challenge. So can you just give us a sense of how you found that balance between meeting and acknowledging the really very different situations on the ground and then saying, well, we need some European framework to make this work?
It's a good question because if you look at the European Union, the European legislation will be implemented in a very different country from Iceland, in France, in French Guiana, for example, in the middle of Amazonia, and you will go to Benelux where it's a high intensified and urban area. If you look at that, the European Union cannot go very deep, I would say, in very specific KPI, because otherwise you will have some challenges for some regions. So first, when you prepare an opinion, it's less technical. So it's not a legislation, so that helps first. Secondly, after the discussion that we have in the Committee of the Regions and where we started to speak about specific regions, like the one at risk for salinization or the overseas territories, we had a paragraph to say you need to take into consideration their specificities as soon as you will prepare legislations. Of course, if you go for connecting every house, when we were speaking about the urban wastewater treatment directive, to urban wastewater treatment plant, if you are in Iceland or in the middle of French Guiana, it's completely impossible. It will be extremely costly, and I'm not sure it will be the best options. You have other options from the utilities who can, or the local authority that can be implemented at that moment. So that is more at the European Union, I think, should provide a framework, and it's the purpose of a directive. Otherwise, we go for a regulation or a décret, for example, in France. And this framework should provide ambitious objectives after when we need to remove the blocks or to make it happen. And the implementation, at that moment, the local authorities need to adapt. Also, internally, they have quite a huge diversity. So that is more the role of the local policymaker to say, okay, we have this objective. We need to be energy neutral for our urban wastewater treatment plan. How we do that, how we go with that. And you will find solution fit for purpose to retake your terminology.
Thank you very much. I'd like to conclude our seminar, but just as I do so, I'd like to invite each of our panel members to just leave us with one message. If we had the chance to be able to slip a piece of paper into the briefing notes, the folders for the incoming set of commissioners who are going to take their seats towards the end of the year, and into the briefing packs of the 600-odd new MEPs who are going to join us in a couple of weeks, what would you want that piece of paper to say? Germaine, I'm going to start on that end of the panel. I'm going to ask each of you to say one or two sentences. What would you like to be on that piece of paper that we could slip into the top of their briefing notes?
Maybe to have a water governance to accelerate and to help to roll out all these solutions that exist and to speed up.
Thank you. Paul?
It's actually a difficult question. Definitely to help and assist small communities and small countries with the technology required to save water and not waste water as well.
Thank you.
I would ask for uniformization of the specifications for reuse of wastewater and rainwater for human use. So in each country, you know which kind of purification or treatment you have to use to reach out to this kind of usage.
Thank you.
From my side, it will be more for the member state, because otherwise it's a little bit the turkey that we have for Christmas meal. It's to prioritize water and to demonstrate that with a strategy and the relevant funds for the next mandate.
Excellent. Can we say a warm thank you to our panel for engaging with us today? And I'd just like to say a few words to conclude. We started by highlighting some of the challenges that face local and regional authorities. And some of these problems are global because they're connected to climate change, to demography, to urbanization, and some of them are highly local, whether you live in a sort of volcanic area, whether you've got, groundwater or desertification. So I think the key message, for me, is I think the next mandate is going to have water at a much higher priority. If you think that some of the highlights of this mandate have been things like the EU Green Deal, the Oceans Mission. So we had, a number of key political missions, and one of them was oceans, but it wasn't water. So I think we need a little bit more connected thinking. The request to have high political leadership within the Commission with responsibility for water is also about a request for policy coherence. So at the same time, we're saying we need regenerative agriculture, we need to protect our degraded soils, we need to protect our forests. That needs to be linked to quality of life in cities. That needs to be linked to our request to be more sovereign and autonomous in our materials and our economic production. If we're going to start reshoring back in Europe for strategic reasons, some of our industrial activity, this needs to be added into the famous WEFA plus health matrix that we put on there. So I'd like to say a warm thank you to UDiTE and to VEOLIA for putting this on, and thank you to the Commission for allowing us to be part of the Green Week activities. I think we fit very nicely with the overall theme of water resilience, and here's hoping that in 6 months we will have a renewed EU mandate with people who want to take water very seriously. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your Friday.